Welcome to the Be All You Can Be MSC, the podcast dedicated to empowering Army Medical Service Corps officers and professionals like you. I'm your host, Stephanie Moore. On today's episode of the Be All You Can Be MSC podcast, it is with great pleasure that I introduce my very good friend and incredible warrant officer, CW3 promotable Goldie Cooper. Goldie, welcome to the podcast. So let's dive right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your Army experience?
I am from Waterloo, Iowa. That's where I grew up. I joined the Army a couple of years after finishing high school, and I actually signed my first enlistment contract before I was 21 years old. I completed basic training in the year 2000, and I became a heavy wheel vehicle mechanic and was assigned to the 101st Corps Support Group at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I deployed to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom in 2002, and I deployed to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. And I then reclassified to biomedical equipment specialist, which was medical equipment repairer at the time. And I completed over 40 weeks of advanced individual training at Shepherd Air Force Base. I had various assignments as a biomedical equipment specialist, including several overseas tours. And I went from being a sergeant to a senior enlisted as a 68 Alpha biomedical equipment specialist. And then I was later appointed as a warrant officer in 2012. I went to the Warrant Officer Candidate School at Fort Novosel, Alabama. From there, came back to Joint Base San Antonio to complete Warrant Officer Basic Course and Medical Logistics Follow-On training. And then I went to Fort Carson, Colorado, and was assigned to Evans Army Community Hospital and was the Chief of Equipment Management branch for the hospital there. I did that job for 2 years and then moved over to what is now the 627th Hospital Center. At the time, it was the 10th Combat Support Hospital. It was a great assignment. I learned a lot about being a leader in the operational environment and operational medicine. We deployed for Operation Spartan Shield. And then after returning, I was assigned to Joint Base San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, and was assigned to the medical test and evaluation activity, where I was assigned as a test officer. And I got to plan and design operational test events for a variety of medical devices or developmental medical devices. One of them was the intrathoracic pressure regulation therapy device, which is a new technology that introduces negative pressure into the breathing circuit of an intubated patient in order to lessen hemorrhaging. I participated in a test of extracorporeal life support. We tested a combination device that provides partial lung support for patients who are suffering from acute respiratory distress syndrome, and also partial kidney support for patients who need continuous renal replacement therapy. So that was great to work with product managers and potential vendors who are potentially bringing the state-of-the-art medical technology to the battlefield. And after that, I was assigned as a PME instructor, where I'm assigned right now. I am the primary instructor for Health Services Maintenance Technician Warrant Officer Training. We conduct a basic course for our newly minted Warrant Officer ones who graduate candidate school at Fort Novosel. We do a Warrant Officer Advanced course, follow-on course, which will be a standalone course in the future. And then we also have a 4-week Warrant Officer ILE, which is a follow-on to the ILE at Fort Novosel 5-week Common Core course at Novosel. And that one will also transition in accordance with our Warrant Officer PME modernization plan, which has been an ongoing effort for several years to optimize warrant officer training and education for multi-domain operations and large-scale combat operations.
Well, Goldie, it sounds like an incredible journey. I mean, I just learned something new to start off as a heavy wheeled mechanic to come full circle now as a senior warrant officer. Definitely a wealth of experience on the operational side as well. So interesting enough that you helped test the extracorporeal life support. because now the burn flight team out of the burn center at Brooke Army Medical, they use ECMO in the transport of burn patients. Interesting to see that come full circle and the utility of that. Thank you for sharing your journey. So I'd be interested, how exactly or when did you say, you know what, I want to be a warrant officer?
I had warrant officer aspirations from the time of my first assignment as a 68 Alpha, which was at Fort Liberty back in 2004. We had a chief of maintenance who was very senior, and I looked at his role as a leader and said, wow, it would be awesome to be an officer, but to continue to serve in a capacity that allowed me to apply my technical skill and that expertise that I'd acquired through my enlisted time in the Army. So, being a technical warrant officer gave me that opportunity to continue to work to maintain medical devices, to continue to assist with their integration into the environment of care and the operational environment, to manage the maintenance, training, and disposition of those devices, but then to transition into an officer role where I could lead the team and also provide that advice and subject matter expertise to the commander and the staff.
I appreciate you sharing that. And so, does the role of the medical maintenance warrant vary then between medical treatment facilities like a hospital versus an operational unit? And could you delve into that a little bit? Because I know you mentioned at 10th Cache that you feel like, which is the combat support hospital, that you feel like you really learned a lot more about leadership. I'd love to hear what is the differences in the roles there.
Yes, absolutely. So once again, my first assignment as a warrant officer was in a brick and mortar medical treatment facility there at Fort Carson, Evans Army Community Hospital. And the 670 Alphas serve as chiefs of healthcare technology management in the military medical treatment facilities. And we also lead the property management sections. The chiefs of HTM lead teams of military and civilian biomedical maintainers, and also some medical supply personnel and inventory managers in the MTFs. We work with our senior 68 Alpha enlisted NCOs to ensure that medical devices and other medical items are properly accounted for, properly maintained, and safe for patient use. And the 670 Alphas also developed the Medical Equipment Management Plan, which is a Joint Commission requirement, and advise the command on issues that pertain to medical equipment readiness and life safety. The 670s Alphas implement the equipment replacement plans and work with the directors of logistics, hospital resource managers, and also clinical section chiefs to ensure that devices are being replaced and that the standard of care is maintained. And the chiefs of HTM also have an active role in numerous committees that address life safety, to include the environment of care and safety committees. So within the brick and mortar facilities, it is a real world mission, and it is very similar to what you would find director of healthcare technology management doing in a civilian sector hospital. In the operational units, the 670 Alpha support unit readiness by ensuring that medical equipment is in a high state of preparedness and readiness. And this ensures that Army medicine has highly reliable medical devices that will support our warfighters and maximize return to duty during combat. So we lead teams of 68 Alphas, and we supervise the completion of field and sustainment level maintenance. We ensure that medical devices are accounted for in the automated electronic system of record and that maintenance plans are initiated properly. We monitor schedule maintenance. We ensure that maintenance is completed in accordance with Army standards. And we support unit readiness by reporting medical device statuses to the commander and providing subject matter expertise to maintenance issues. So we also, in the operational environment, assist with equipment fielding. We integrate systems to optimize the end-to-end maintenance process, and we perform as leaders, as a more direct leadership role typically in those assignments in the medical logistics companies, in the field hospitals, and also in the multifunctional medical battalions and medical brigades. So it was a growing experience for me.
I definitely agree with you because I don't think enough people discuss that warrants our key staff officers, especially in the multifunctional medical battalions and the medical brigades. Like, you are a part of the staff in the planning process for operations. And if you aren't involved with that, we're probably making a dire mistake in our operations planning and, most importantly, in our concept of sustainment. Do you find that it was more difficult to kind of own that role in the operational unit since you are such a single SME? Or did you find that it was more challenging being in the medical treatment facility side as a leader?
I think that in the medical treatment facility, systems are optimized with healthcare delivery in mind. For instance, we've had DEMLS as our system of record for the MTFs for a couple of decades now. So they are focused on medical device inventory management within those modules that exist for our use within DEMLS, where we've had historically more troubles ensuring that medical devices are accounted for properly in the operational systems of record, which currently is Global Combat Support System Army. The Army provides a much better solution, a much improved solution, and the Army Medical Logistics Command is making strides to ensure that we improve the reporting and also parts ordering capability through GArmy. Historically, there have been more challenges in the operational side for accounting for devices and also capturing our maintenance, but there have been tremendous improvements in recent years.
I appreciate you expanding on that. And I think the maintenance hours capturing, I'll get a little bit on my own soapbox, I think has been detrimental to us because we potentially have lost authorizations because we weren't capturing those man hours in the same way that we would on a wheeled vehicle to ensure that we are properly staffed with the personnel to continue to do that maintenance. I appreciate you highlighting that. And so, warrant officers also have a critical role, especially the medical maintenance warrant officers on the strategic level. I know that there are authorizations both at FORCECOM, AMLC, which is the Army Medical Logistics Command. The Medical Center of Excellence now has a Command Chief Warrant Officer, CW5 Hughes. What do you see the role of the warrant officer at the strategic level?
Yes, at the strategic level, our senior 670 Alpha warrant officers advise commanders. They help design policy and they are informed uniquely through their understanding of medical devices and medical device systems and how they integrate with into medical units and also healthcare information systems. They can provide that technical expertise to the senior commanders in order to create solutions for complex challenges. I think that's where the senior 670 alphas provide a great and very unique capability through that development that they've had through many years of managing and addressing complex problems in both the MTFs and also, especially in the operational environment. They can bring that to commanders at higher levels, strategic levels, to help policy, define policy that benefits us all.
Absolutely. And so when you were talking earlier and you were sharing when did you decide to become a warrant officer, I definitely could sense the emotions and it sounded like joy that I was hearing in your voice. So I would be curious what your thoughts are and like what characteristics and skills that a 68 alpha needs to be a successful warrant officer.
I believe that first and foremost, the biomedical equipment specialist should exhibit exceptional performance. It should be one of the self starters, one of those that take tremendous care and pride in all of their tasks, and you see it reflect in their performance and also in their evaluation. This requires a strong competencies. This has a strong baseline skill set, is what I would say is what undergirds a good warrant officer, having a strong technical base. This requires a strong understanding of pneumatic, electromechanical, and hydraulic principles and how they affect the clinical application of the devices. I would also say that written, verbal, and interpersonal skills are a must for warrant officers. We are communicating to commanders and staff. We're communicating to our own teams, and we are communicating to medical personnel throughout the force. Being able to share that knowledge through the written and also spoken word is imperative. And also having interpersonal skills to be able to break things down and explain things in a way that enhances the understanding of other team members. Sometimes we live in this technical world, we as 670 alphas are technical warrant officers in general, and we have to be able to step outside of our understanding and awareness and kind of translate things when things that we encounter, subjects that we encounter that are very technical that we take for granted at times may not be very apparent to others. So being able to translate and interpret and explain it in a way that builds the understanding of others is very important. So interpersonal skills are a necessary skill for that. I would say other characteristics are being innovative and being a perpetual learner. The best warrant officers continue to seek military and civilian education opportunities that prepare them for success. I also believe that systems thinking is important. Our role as systems integrators requires people who can analyze systems and processes and see opportunities to optimize them in ways that create desired outcomes, healthcare delivery outcomes, and also ultimately battlefield outcomes. So that systems thinking is very important. And then last but not least, I would say enthusiasm. Just deriving true enjoyment from the craft and developing others is important to being successful as a warrant officer. Fostering the development of people who are walking the path that I once walked is tremendously rewarding for me. And I do believe that the best warrant officers embrace the role of developing junior warrant officers and soldiers from their respective career fields.
Well, I will tell you, you definitely embody enthusiasm from the time I met you when you were a warrant officer. One, you had just become a warrant officer. You have the same enthusiasm that you did then that you still carry with you today. So it's one of the things I think that stands out about you is both your enthusiasm and then fostering it within others. And I know that was before you even were at the schoolhouse. It's interesting that you bring up being a continued learner and the systems thinker with any future operations. That's really going to come into play. And yes, you all are technical experts, but I really appreciate how you are highlighting that you guys are also leaders in your own right and do have a big part to play when communicating to commanders, both risk, challenges, and solution sets. I don't know what your experience has been, but mine has been is very few people want to talk about medical maintenance until something doesn't work.
That's the trend, usually. Nonetheless, we're there doing those things that keep devices working and ensuring that they're highly reliable all the time. One of the analogies that I like to use to explain medical maintenance is I would use pop stars or rock stars. When they have a concert, there are lights and there is pyro and there are a number of things that are happening that bring life to the show and that embellish the show and allow it to be the best of what it can be. And I think there are similarities between those technicians that turn on the lights and control the pyro and healthcare technology management personnel. We are those light and sound and pyro technicians for Army medicine. Without us performing scheduled maintenance on the devices, without us responding to emergency work orders or various unscheduled maintenance, safety of use messages. Without that happening, devices aren't highly reliable and the medical mission can't be accomplished. I like to use that analogy.
I don't think I'm ever going to go to a concert and look at it the same again. That is actually fantastic. And for a minute, though, I will say, I was like, is the warrant officer the rock star? I had to follow your story to see where you're going. But wow, that is a very powerful analogy. You have forever changed my viewpoint going to a concert. But yeah, that it's very true, at least for me and my experience, especially on the operational force. I remember being in the Cav regiment, and I won't say which one, and they hadn't performed medical maintenance, even though they had gone to 2 cycles deployment downrange. And if the equipment didn't come out of the conics, the equipment wasn't touched. And they really couldn't identify the last time that medical maintenance had been done on these medical maintenance significant devices, life saving devices. In the future,
Yes.
very near future, we do not have that luxury. We are going to need everything optimized, ready to go. And it's definitely something that both medical planners and medical logisticians and commanders need to think about and consider. We need to all get ready for that rock star concert. So,
Absolutely.
so I would like to share with the audience, if they are interested, how can they become a 670 Alpha medical maintenance warrant officer?
Yes. So soldiers that want to become a warrant officer, if they are a biomedical equipment specialist, they can submit an application for 670 Alpha. A mill per message is released annually to solicit those applicants. Aspiring warrant officers should be aware of the prerequisites. So, not only the prerequisites for 670 Alpha, but also the baseline warrant officer requirements. Once they determine that they can meet those baseline warrant officer requirements, then look at the 670 Alpha prerequisites, which include experience and also experience as a supervisor, which are documented in evaluation reports.
Do you need any kind of letter of support or recommendations with that packet?
Yes, applicants will require a letter of recommendation from a senior Alpha warrant officer, as well as letters of recommendation from their command. They can go to the USAREC website and look at the warrant officer recruiting site. There's a link there, and then they can look at it by MOS and find 670 Alpha, and then find those prerequisites, the letters of recommendation, the physical requirements, such as a current physical assessment, and several others. Also, the educational requirements, which is an associate degree for 670 Alpha.
I appreciate you sharing, and I will make sure to link the information in this episode. So, once you become a 670 Alpha, what other education programs are there available? Does long term health education apply to the warrant officers as well?
Yes, there are long term health education opportunities for 670s, including bachelor's degree completion, school of choice. We can also apply for the Baylor programs to include the Master of Health Administration. There are also other opportunities for broadening assignments to be capability developers. As I mentioned with test and evaluation, there are also jobs in USAMA and USAMDA, wherein warrant officers can apply their subject matter expertise in acquisition roles. There's training and education. We have warrant officers who served as TAC officers at Fort Novacell, and also PME instructor, such as myself. And going back to the strategic level, we have, you mentioned earlier, the command chief warrant officer positions, which we have at the Medical Center of Excellence and also at AMLC and our CCWO, CW5DN. He's worked very hard to help achieve other strategic positions. There could possibly in the future be warrant officers in the division, in each Army division, and that would help with the maintenance of medical devices in those operational units which you spoke to earlier, which at times don't get as much attention as rolling stock and other commodities, because we do have 268 alphas in the brigade combat teams, but adding a warrant officer there would help provide the technical expertise and leadership to synchronize maintenance efforts between 68 alphas in the divisions and those within the medical brigade. So there are plenty of opportunities now, and as our senior warrant officers continue to make efforts to close gaps, we anticipate tremendous opportunities in the future.
That would be incredible if we had a medical maintenance warrant at the division. What I've seen in my experience has been those 68 alphas oftentimes are dual hatted, whether it says the armor or other things, even though by regulation they're not supposed to be. There's too much work to go around, and they don't get to be the advocate for the technical expertise that they bring to the table. And oftentimes they don't have enough rank to really advocate for themselves, nor the ear of a senior enough commander. So if the future lies that opportunities come in the division, I think that's fantastic for the future of medical maintenance. I do want to tie back to one thing that you said. You mentioned the medical test and evaluation. You mentioned USAMDA as well. Do medical maintenance warrants get the opportunity to earn the 8 X-ray acquisition ASI?
We do not have that opportunity at this time,
Okay.
but the training path is there and available, such as myself, while I was assigned to test and eval, I was able to complete the training path for level one T&E certification. So that is very valuable and also bodes well for a future in the acquisition community within test and eval if I were to go that route, or if any warrant officer who served there went that route. Also within the Medical Center of Excellence, we have a warrant officer position within Capabilities Development and Integration Directorate, CDID, which is actually a subordinate unit of U.S. Army Futures Command. And they have opportunities to attend the Capability Developers course or CapDev course. And there is an identifier, skill identifier 7 Yankee, that is awarded after completion of the CapDev course. Those are just a couple of potential opportunities for acquiring the skill and also training and education.
I appreciate you sharing the broad opportunities that there are available to you. So, what advice would you give to someone that's on the fence, an NCO that's on the fence, that's like, hey, I really like being the technical expert. I don't know if I have what it takes to be that SME. What would your advice to them be?
My advice would be that being a warrant officer is one of the most rewarding aspects of my life and absolutely the best decision. The decision to apply, I would say, is the best decision that I made in my Army career. I'm approaching 24 years of service, reached 24 years this August. Most of that has been as a warrant officer. It allowed me to continue to rely upon that technical expertise and also to continue to hone my craft through pursuing certifications, but to also lead soldiers, to work with multidisciplinary teams, and apply what I've learned in the Army as a single track specialty officer. And then also to learn from the conventional officers, to have more opportunities to be at the table with them and learn from them and be developed by them. I've had great medical logistics officers throughout my career, and I share that experience during training and education, that they expanded my horizons through sharing with me their experiences and also recommending books and developing me, coaching me, mentoring me, and teaching me. So that's another advantage that being a warrant officer provides. So I would strongly encourage anyone who's considering it to go ahead and make the jump.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. So, Chief, as we wrap up here, we're going to shift to some fun questions, more personal. So,
Oh,
you gave some great advice if someone wants to become a warrant officer, but I'd be curious, what's the best career advice you've either ever received or you've ever given?
the best career advice that I think I've received is to strive to be a servant leader. When we apply the Army values sincerely and consistently and strive to build meaningful relationships with peers and subordinates and also leaders, beneficial outcomes are destined to follow. That has been my experience. So, thinking outwardly benefits the mission and striving to be a leader that embodies the competencies and attributes that are within that Army leadership requirements model. That's the best advice that I think I've gotten, to try to be a servant leader. Don't put, we all have to position ourselves best through training and education and through our experience in order to be able to take the step up and help the Army when opportunity provides. But to not be careerist and to sincerely consider others and strive to be a servant leader. I think that's the best advice.
Well, thank you for that heartfelt advice. You articulated that in a wonderful way. So, thank you.
Thank you.
um, All right. So for our last and final question, What is a fun fact about you? And if you don't have one, tell us what your favorite ice cream is.
Uh, Fun fact. Oh, I'm in technician mode. I'm in technical mode here. So thinking of something fun is going to have to, which technical stuff is fun to me, but I might have to switch gears a little bit and just talk about ice cream. And I would say I don't necessarily have a favorite ice cream. I like vanilla, but I do go to Baskin Robbins pretty often, and every time I'm there, I get a banana split. So that's
Oh, nice choice.
that's my favorite.
Okay, banana split. But I will challenge you, Chief, the next time we talk, because there's several flavors of vanilla. Is it the vanilla bean, or is it the French vanilla, or I think it's
Homemade,
like the
you know,
homemade?
yeah, I did think about that. I looked at it and said, well, I love vanilla, but yeah, there's still a lot of vanilla flavors.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Goldie. You have been an amazing individual, an amazing warrant officer to have the pleasure to serve with. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wealth of information and your thoughts. Do you have any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Fun. I would add that also. Being young and joining the military at the age of 20 years old, raising my right hand, and a little after that was a braver step than I realized that it was in hindsight, but it's just opened tremendous doors. I wasn't the prime candidate for the military. I probably was a little, or if someone had told my classmates back in middle school that I joined the Army, they probably think I was a little too slight and bookish to be the Army type. But there was something about the military that always appealed to me. And so taking that step was life changing. And it also provides that sense of having served a great nation, the greatest country in the world. So anyone listening who's on the fence about whether or not to serve, I would strongly encourage you to do 2 years, 3 years, sign that enlistment contract, or if you can, become an officer. And it worked for me. I started out as a 2 year stint for me to get some college money. And here I am almost a quarter century later. So join, and it'll be a life changing experience in many positive ways.
Well, Goldie, thank you again. Thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a good evening.
You too, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Don't miss the next episode of the Be All You Can Be MSC podcast. Subscribe now and join our vibrant community of ambitious professionals who are taking their careers to the next level. The opinions shared on this podcast are the personal opinions of the guests and the hosts. They do not reflect the official position of the Medical Service Corps, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government.